Exactly 20 years ago, on this very same stage, I was part of a cast of a world-renowned musical called My Fair Lady. I was not a main actor, neither was I a supporting actor. Thankfully, I also wasn't a prop. Looking back, I feel like I've always been on a big stage, trying to win. See, I was born in Kibra, to a modest, humble family. My folks, and my mom particularly, worked extremely hard to provide our basics. I never slept hungry or missed school on account of school fees. They did their parental responsibility. I was also a top student in primary school, and I don't say. But mostly motivated by the near-death caning experiences under the patronage of our headmistress, Miss Ann Jokinganga. Thanks to her and the other teachers, I just missed by 3 marks the school of my choice, my dream school, Starehe. I later was invited to join Highway Secondary School. As the name suggests, it's on a highway. I took this news back home, and my dad told me he was not going to pay that school fees. I was devastated. So one morning, I picked myself up, asked my mom for a few coins, and made my way to Starehe. I didn't know where to start or who to speak to, but I was determined to join the school. So I decided to camp outside the main office. I camped there 1 day, 2 days. On the 4th day, Griffin seeing me there, Dr. Griffin, who is the founder and director of Starehe, the late, saw me there and bellowed, "What are you doing here, boy? Get away and only come back when we call you." But I was back the next day, to his chagrin, and the next, and the next, and for the next 13 days. Every day, including weekends. On the 13th day, he looked at me and he said, "Boy, come into my office." By now, I had realized that my fate lay, because I was 7th in the waiting list, my fate lay in 7 people not turning up. I was not going to leave my fate to others. So when he told me, "Speak, boy," oh boy, I spoke. Eventually, he called for my file, he reviewed my file, and he said, "I am only going to admit you because of your math and your English." I can't tell you the joy I had that day. I was back on the big stage. And with that, I exited the stage and moved on to the next act. In 2005, I met a girl, Vera. Quiet but smart, dimpled with rich melanin. She was the most humble girl I'd ever met, and I knew this was it. We quickly became best of friends, and I liked this girl, so I prayerfully decided this is the girl I will marry. And on one night during dinner on her birthday, I proposed without drama, and without drama, she said yes. In the meantime, my career was thriving. I had joined Safaricom in 2008, and I have nothing to do with the sponsorship. And I joined Safaricom after having been fired from a job earlier that year, having been a victim of the tribal fallout that was facing the country after the post-election violence of 2007. It crushed me that I could be punished for being professional. And at that very moment, I determined that I was going to do something to change my country. I decided I was going to run for office of Member of Parliament for my constituency in Gem in the 2013 election. I quickly put together the easiest people to pull into an exploratory committee. Some of my friends, George Gashara, my lifelong friend, who we've been friends for forever, 33 years and counting, Conor More. And we quickly started going into the constituency, working with the churches, with schools, with the community, with underprivileged kids. I got completely immersed in preparing for office. Meanwhile, at Safaricom in 2009, there was a change of guard. Exit Michael Joseph, enter Mr. Bob Collymore. And with Bob's entry, my fortunes changed. I immediately got promoted to senior manager responsible for public sector sales. Things were happening. The next year, in 2011, I became the vice chair of 2010. I became the vice chair of the Old Stereham Society, a role that gave me an opportunity to meet with the high and mighty, including President Mwai Kibaki. Later that year, I met Peter Kenneth for the first time, when he came for an old boys gathering, and I, as vice chair, invited him to speak to the gathering and introduced him as the next president of the Republic of Kenya. He made a snide remark which disappointed me, and I was sure to tell him to his face that I was disappointed. As a way of explaining, he invited me to his office the next day. We had a deep conversation. Meaningful. A deep, meaningful conversation. And I could see his passion for this country, his love for Kenya, and his vision for where he wanted to take the country. And I decided this was going to be my candidate for 2013. He invited me to join his team, and I accepted. So here I am, vice chair of the Old Stereham Society, planning to run for office of Member of Parliament in 2013, having joined a presidential election campaign with a thriving career in Safaricom, and at the same time, I was a talk show host on TV for a show called Hatua. At home, life was blissful. I had a wonderful, supportive wife, and now a beautiful princess, Hadassah. Sometime later that year, in 2011, Peter Kenneth invited me to become the chairman of his campaign. We set up a strong campaign team and put up what we thought was a winning strategy. We rolled out one of the most aggressive social media campaigns, and we were thriving on Twitter and Facebook. Fast forward to 2013, and every candidate we had lined up for running mate for Peter Kenneth fell short for one reason or the other. So one of these evenings in January, when we were sitting with the Council of Elders of the campaign. So a campaign has a campaign, and then you have the Council of Elders for the campaign. When we were meeting this Council of Elders to determine a way forward for selecting a running mate, one of the elders seated in the room, James Mureo, says, "Bona tunasumbuka kutafuta mtu na tunaweza tumia huyu kijana." And I was like, me? And there were a lot of knowing glances from across the room. Thankfully, the chairman of the meeting called it off and asked everybody to come back the next day with better options. So the next day, I come back to the campaign headquarters to meet my team. And everybody is referring to me as DP. And initially it felt good and I thought it was funny. Until I got a phone call from another elder called Julius Kipngetich, who asked me if I had any reason that I could not serve my country. My heart skipped a beat, because then I knew this was serious business. I decided to consult with one of Peter Kenneth's advisors and personal assistant at the time, Stanley Kamau, and Stanley told me I should start making peace with the inevitable. I went to the basement, said a short prayer, and decided to call my wife. Now, I didn't know how this conversation was going to go, because at this time, we had a 4-month-old baby, Eli, who had rarely seen me. I could just as well have been the guy who comes to collect garbage from the house. So I didn't know how she was going to react to this conversation, this meaningful conversation. She chuckled and said, "I saw this coming. And if it is what you want to do, then please go ahead and do it." Hang on. But she gave me conditions. I call them middle-class problems. Mortgage must be paid, insurance, medical, school fees, club lunches on Sundays with the kids. She basically told me our life should not change. Oh well, it did. Everything, including the marriage, which we are still working on and trying to salvage while clinging onto the thing that we both love most, our kids. Anyway, so when Peter finally made the call and asked me if I was going to do it, I already had an answer, and I said yes. The next person I called was Mr. Colimo. And I told him what was happening, and he told me he knows. And so with that, we set an announcement date, January 16th at exactly 10 a.m. in front of live television. And my life, as I knew it, ended. There was no reverse gear. My phone started ringing completely off the hook. You wonder where these guys were before that day. At 9:59. By the end of the day, I had over 500 missed calls, over 5,000 text messages. I had now become a public figure. The world owned me. Everything I said, did, or even imagined was going to be scrutinized with a tooth comb. To me, this was it. I had arrived on the big stage. Anyway, so we jump into the campaign, and I loved it. I loved the people we met across the country, and they loved me right back. I even started believing that we just may be able to win this damn thing. We always believed that IEBC never counted the votes from Twitter and Facebook. But here I was, facing another failure in my life. Only this time, it was a spectacular failure, and in the glare of the whole country. I was crushed. By day 3 of vote counting, when Mapambano had started on the streets, we decided to concede and made a public concession. Immediately after the concession, the phone went silent. Thank you. The show was over. I drank my silence away and found comfort in hanging out with my now 6-month-old son. But I also found encouragement from a friend, George Gashara, who told me to go back to the people and thank them for their support. But I also got some of the most comforting messages from people. Kenyans are fundamentally good people. But the message that carried the day was from Mr. Kolimo. He tweeted back and said, "You do know you have a return ticket." And 2 weeks later, I was back at my desk. So I'm back at Safaricom, but it didn't feel right anymore. I wanted more. So a year later, I left, and I set up a social action platform called Honored Kenya. After that, after cajoling, literally they were pulling me through the doors, I joined Oracle Corporation to help them set up their public sector team as the head of public sector in Kenya. President Uhuru then thought that I needed a job. So he appointed me to chair the Youth Advisory Board and then later the Youth Enterprise Development Fund. But I have learned a couple of things from my journey. That life is not a stage. Life is a war, made up of many battles. Some battles you win, some you lose. But just because you're losing some battles doesn't mean you've lost the war. I'm fighting my own battles, my marriage, my finances, my health, my career. But I have come to love my battle scars because they are my badge of honor. They are proof that I am battle-hardened. And as sure as I stand here today, having been to the biggest stage that the country could offer, I now know that life is more than an act. It's a war, and it's a war that we must win. And because some of my battles and my struggles have been so public, people think that I conquer easily, and I get up, and we move on. But the truth is I don't. I go broke. I disappoint the people I love. I fall sick. I lose. But because of the people around me, some of them here today, many not. Amongst them, my kids, Hadassah and Eli, my mom, my friends, Con is here. I also have a boys' club. I set it up when I was fired from the other one. We call it Kongamano. You know, what kind of... But because of those people and because of many other faceless ones, or those who I cannot name here, I will keep fighting my battle. And I can guarantee you, I will win the war. Thank you.